In May, the first time Kira found the warm patch, she thought Eli had left something plugged in under the rug. There was no rug. She had got up at 2:11 because the radiator in the bedroom had started its polite knocking, and because once she woke enough to hear it, she rarely fell back asleep without a glass of water. The apartment was dark except for the microwave clock in the kitchen, a weak green block through the doorway. Their living room lay between the bedroom and the sink. Couch with one arm gone shiny, low bookcase. The plant Eli kept forgetting to rotate toward the window. The boards were cold under her feet in the way old varnished wood stayed cold even in late spring. Then halfway across, one clean rectangle of warmth took her by surprise. Not hot, not enough to mean danger. Just a held piece of heat, about the size of a bath mat, and set slightly off-center between the couch and the window. She stopped on it. The warmth stayed where it was. Her own body did not hurry to explain it. In the kitchen, she filled a glass, drank half, and came back through the dark more carefully. The patch was still there. She stood on it again, this time with both feet together, and looked down as if the floor might have changed color. Eli from the bedroom said, "You all right?" What was that? Nothing. He made the small, doubtful sound he made when she answered a question too fast. In the morning, he forgot to ask again, or acted as if he had. The warmth came back the next night, and the night after that, always around 2, always in the same place and in the same shape. Kira discovered this by accident first, and then, once she knew it might happen, by leaving the bedroom a minute earlier than she needed to. Eli discovered it in the slower way he discovered most things in the apartment, by noticing where she paused. On the fourth night, he came into the kitchen while she was standing in the living room with both bare feet in the warm rectangle and a glass in her hand. He looked at her, then at the floor. "What are you doing?" "Come here." He crossed the room and stopped when he reached her. Eli always slept in a t-shirt even in winter, and never seemed to understand how cold the floor got after midnight. He put one foot forward, found the patch, and looked down too. "Huh," he said. That was the only real conversation they had about it for weeks. After that, the patch entered the apartment the way certain noises did. The upstairs shower that started at 6:40, the elevator cable taking weight, the delivery truck that backed into the alley on Thursdays and gave one patient beep for each foot it moved. It became one more thing that happened whether or not either of them mentioned it. Eli started getting up for water when Kira did not. Some nights she woke and found his side of the bed empty and knew, before she heard the tap, where he had paused on the way. Once, passing through the living room with a sheet tucked around herself because June had arrived colder than May had promised, she found him standing on the patch with the freezer door open, eating a spoonful of peach sorbet directly from the carton. "Insomnia?" she said. He nodded without embarrassment. "This is helping less than I hoped." She took the carton from him, put it back, and stepped onto the warm boards after him. They stood there for a moment in the blue refrigerator light, not touching because the room was too narrow for that to happen by accident. By the middle of June, the patch had become precise in their bodies. Kira could find its leading edge in the dark with her toes. Eli learned the way to cross the room diagonally, so he arrived on it without groping. Neither of them called it looking forward to it. It was only a warm place in the floor that appeared for 11 or 12 minutes in the middle of the night. But when Kira lay awake listening for the radiator, she also listened for the apartment settling into the hour when the patch tended to come. When Eli stayed up too late with his headphones on and one of the dense history podcasts that put him to sleep more reliably than sleep itself, he began brushing his teeth before bed with an eye on the stove clock, and then lingering in the bathroom a little too long. There was nothing mystical about any of this. Their apartment was old in ways that had no charm after the lease was signed. The kitchen windows stuck in damp weather. The bathroom fan made a dry bearing sound and then stopped when slapped in one exact place. In September, the super had to open part of the hallway ceiling because a drain line from upstairs kept sweating through the plaster. Once, during a storm, water came in under the living room window and darkened the sill in a straight, neat line, as if the weather had arrived with office manners. So the patch should have been one more piece of that. Some hidden pipe, some badly insulated duct, a wire where a wire should not be. Kira said this in July while she was sitting on the floor folding laundry and Eli was reading the building email about trash room hours. "You still haven't looked into it," he said. "Neither have you. I thought you were in charge of nocturnal floor anomalies." She threw one of his socks at him. He did not put down the email. "Maybe it's a vent," he said. "Under the boards. A very committed vent." That weekend they looked. The super, whose name was Luis and whose talent lay in answering questions with whatever level of truth would end them fastest, unlocked the basement telecom room for them because the laundry machines were broken again and he was already down there. The room was behind the water heaters and smelled of hot dust, cinderblock damp, and the metallic cold of equipment that had been working for years without anyone having to love it. Conduit ran along the ceiling in gray lines. Coils of older cable hung on hooks with paper tags gone the color of weak tea. Against the far wall sat a cabinet not much taller than Kira's waist, painted beige once and then touched 1,000 times. Luis opened it with a key from the ring clipped to his belt. "This your floor thing?" he said. Inside were patch panels, a small black chassis with 2 fans, an older unit below it with a single green LED, and a newer metal box zip-tied in without much grace. The upper chassis gave off a dry, steady warmth. A label strip, printed and laminated years earlier, had peeled at one edge. Kira could still read parts of it. "Regional Relay à Weiss leg." Below that, in marker, someone had written a date and then crossed it out. Under the crossed-out date was a second one from 3 years later. "I thought this was dead," Luis said. "Is it not?" Eli asked. Luis bent, squinted at the green LED, and shrugged. "Mostly dead." He called someone from the number taped inside the cabinet door. A man named Caleb arrived 40 minutes later in a polo shirt with a Carrier logo stitched on the chest and the expression of a person who had driven across town to confirm something uninteresting. He plugged a handheld tester into the newer box, waited, and said, "There's still one nightly transfer on that leg." "What kind of transfer?" Kira asked. Caleb shook his head. "Legacy retention job. Archive replication, probably. Something contractual. It runs, it clears, it goes quiet again." "For what?" Eli said. "Couldn't tell you." He said it without mystery. "Can it make the floor warm?" Kira asked. Caleb glanced up once. "That gear's older than it should be," he said. "If the transfer wakes the optical handoff and the fans spin up, sure. Through the chase and the joists. Is it a problem?" "No." "Will it stop?" Caleb looked back at his tester. "Everything does." Then he packed the tester away and left them with Luis, who had already turned his attention back to the washing machines. In the elevator going up, Eli said, "Mostly dead." Kira laughed. "You sound disappointed." "I was hoping for a tiny son. Under the couch. A modest one." That night the patch arrived at 2:08 and lasted long enough for Kira to brush her teeth, drink water, and come back to it once before it cooled. She did not think about archive replication while she stood there. She thought about the basement room, the cracked label, the little fan behind the black grill working harder than anyone had asked it to for reasons no one in their building could name. It made the patch feel more exact. By August, the warmth had changed. Not location, not shape. It still met the floorboards in the same clean rectangle. But it seemed to thin more quickly, arriving with less body and leaving sooner. Eli noticed first. "Shorter," he said one night, standing on the patch in the dark. Kira was already in bed. "What?" "It's shorter." That was the first time either of them had referred to the patch directly in weeks, and even then he did it as if answering a question she had not asked. After that, they both began measuring without admitting it. Kira knew the patch used to hold through the time it took her to fill the kettle and rinse 1 cup before going back to bed. In September, it no longer did. Eli, who set his watch alarm for 1:59 on nights when his sleep would not settle, stopped pretending he had other reasons to be awake. Some nights the warmth was almost gone by the time he reached it. Some nights it stayed only as a faint release in the boards, a difference more than a temperature. The weather turned. They put the heavier quilt back on the bed. The plant in the living room dropped 2 yellow leaves in 1 week and had to be cut back from a shape Eli insisted was not his fault. On Sundays, Kira called her sister from the couch with her feet tucked under her. Eli began making soup on weeknights because the pot could be left alone. Their life stayed itself. The patch went on becoming less. In October, Kira woke to find Eli already standing in the living room. She could see him from the bedroom door only as a darker shape in the dark. "Is it there?" she said. "Barely." She came and stood beside him. The rectangle still held a little warmth, the last thin version of itself. "It'll finish," Eli said. He did not sound sad. He sounded like a man talking about a library closing 10 minutes earlier than expected. Kira put 1 foot exactly where the warmth was strongest and the other beside it on the cold boards. The difference had narrowed enough that the body had to pay attention. "I know," she said. That was all. The first night it did not come. She woke anyway. The radiator had not knocked. No truck was backing into the alley. Nothing in the apartment had called her up except the old hour itself. She crossed the living room in the dark, found the patch's usual place, and stood on cold boards. Not wrong boards. The right ones, only cold. In the kitchen, she drank water and waited longer than there was any reason to wait. When she came back, the floor had not changed. Eli remained asleep. The next night, it did not come either. At breakfast, Eli spread jam on toast and said, "I think it's done." Kira, rinsing her glass, nodded. There was no more to say than that. Somewhere below them, whatever had been making its single nightly crossing had either finished or been turned off or reached the point where someone in another city finally signed a line item out of existence. The cabinet in the basement would still be there. The label would keep peeling. Dust would go on gathering on the fan grill. In a year, perhaps, some other tenant would ask Luis about an unrelated noise, and he would unlock the same room with the same key. For the next week, they still woke at the old time. Not every night. Enough. Kira would go for water and cross the room on the diagonal she had learned. Eli, if he woke after her, would cut the opposite angle from the bedroom door to the kitchen and back again. Neither of them paused the first 2 nights. On the third, Kira did. She stopped with both feet on the cold rectangle and stood there long enough to feel how completely ordinary the boards had become. Eli came out of the bedroom in the dark and, without asking why she had stopped, stepped into the same space beside her. The boards were cool. Somewhere in the building, a toilet filled and shut off. The radiator gave one small preparatory click and then decided against continuing. Eli shifted his weight once, locating the edges of the rectangle by memory. Kira did the same. After a minute, he went to the sink. She heard the tap run, the glass set down, the cupboard close. On his way back to bed, he crossed the room exactly as before and placed his feet, without looking, on the place where the warmth had been. The next night, Kira did it first.